Vogel, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, and the Right Honourable Ivet Cooper, Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs of the United Kingdom. They will each offer their remarks from the podium, and we will then immediately open for questions. And a reminder to all of us that plenary sessions at the Manama Dialogue are on the record. Ayman, may I invite you to take the podium? Thank you very much.
Well, good morning to you all, and allow me to start by expressing our gratitude to our gracious host, the Kingdom of Bahrain. Abdul Latif, thank you so much for hosting us, and also thanks go to IISS for their continued efforts to bring us together for what has truly been a very open, very frank and very useful conversation over many, many years. So thank you all for having us, and I'm honored to be here along with my colleagues Johan and Ivet on this forum. Bastian told me I have 8 minutes. I'm going to try and be shorter and probably yield my time for a more interactive conversation. But I'll try and be very brief, and I think I'll start from the title of our session, Global Security, and I think those two were on governance, and I think the 3 words really show how interconnected everything we're going to be addressing today is. Global, because it is true, our security is interconnected. Conflict in one part of our world is definitely going to have consequences for the rest of the world. So it is imperative that we look at all the challenges that we have from the point of view that all of us are going to be affected by whatever security challenges that emerge in any part of our worlds. And obviously, security is key for governance, and again, security needs to be looked at in its comprehensive sense. Not just military hard security, but also soft security that addresses other challenges that undermine security. And obviously, we have security, we have governance, and again, everything is interconnected in that way. Unless we have proper security, we're not going to have proper governance. And I think no place in the world offers that many challenges related to all those issues than our part of the world, than our region. We continue to suffer tremendous security challenges. The crises in the region continue to have a global impact, and the absence of security is definitely impacting our ability to put in place governance structures that could yield the results of ensuring stability and peace and prosperity for the region, and ultimately the consequences of that for the world at large. I cannot but be specific because we're dealing with reality here, and Manama Dialogue has always been about being real and not being theoretical, and I think the biggest challenge that we still have is Gaza. Thankfully, we finally have a ceasefire, and it took for President Trump himself to interfere and make sure that we get to a ceasefire, and that is imperative. We have as a priority now to make sure that that ceasefire is stabilized, that it's not broken, and that the agreement that produced the ceasefire is committed to in all its components. When we started approaching the final days leading to the ceasefire, I think the priority for all of us was to end the bloodshed, because the continuation of the killing of the massacre was not going to yield anything but more destruction, more killing, more hatred, more dehumanization. The humanitarian catastrophe that was deepening in Gaza was starting to have even a larger impact. People were starving, children were dying from the lack of baby formula, from food, and the impact was, really becoming more intolerable for all of us. So I think the priority was to get the ceasefire, stop the starvation, allow for aid to come in conditions that would have been definitely, inevitably conducive to displacement of Palestinians, and then talk another day for the politics. So the real work begins now. How do we ensure security? Back to our... And unless we have security, we're not going to be able to move forward. We're not going to be able to have governance. So ensuring security for both, for Palestinians, for Israelis, is the key next step that we must all work towards. And we're all in the Arab Muslim group, along with our partners in Europe, and also along with the United States, and again, the proposal by President Trump that opened the door for ending the catastrophe and moving forward towards a better future is the thing on which we all are focused. How do we translate that proposal into action, into plans, into steps, into measures that guarantee the security and for all, for both for Israelis and for Palestinians. So I think it is imperative that we have a Palestinian police that is in charge of the security of the Palestinians. That needs to be supported by an international stabilization force. We all agree on that. But we all agree that in order for that stabilization force to be able to be effective in getting the job done, it has to have a Security Council mandate so that other countries can come in, and so that we really work out the details of the interfacing between the international force and the Palestinian force, which again must be in charge of security of the Palestinians, and that international stabilization force could do a major work in deconfliction and also in helping the Palestinian police. And we in Jordan, along with our brothers in Egypt, have said repeatedly that we're willing and ready and able to train Palestinian police and deploy that force. Of course, the elephant in the room is going to be Israeli presence in Gaza. Israel remains in about 53% of Gaza. It is just, and again, I'm speaking here from the point of view of being practical, of trying to increase the workability of the plans that we have on the ground right now. With Israel staying in Gaza, I think security is going to be a challenge. So it is imperative that we have a timeline for the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. Israel cannot stay in 53% of Gaza and then expect security to be achieved. So I think we have to look at all these things when it comes to security. We have to, deploy the Palestinian police, make sure that we have clear scope of work for the Palestinian police vis-à-vis the international stabilization force that needs to be there, and work out a mechanism for dealing with the Israeli troops that are still in Gaza. And we all know that it's going to have to be a process to get them out. And I think it is imperative that we also have a deconfliction mechanism so that we don't have that confusion and we don't have security challenges being dealt with Israeli forces over the heads of the Palestinian police, which is going to create a problem. So how do we create a mechanism for deconfliction is something that I think we're going to have to address in order for us to be able to ensure that whatever security arrangements we put on the ground are going to be workable and are going to achieve their goal of stopping the bloodshed and not allowing for the conflict to re-erupt. And of course, it comes to governance. Once we have security, we're going to have to look at governance. And I think it is also imperative that Palestinians are ruled by Palestinians. I think, with all due respect, it's not going to work to bring people from outside the region to rule Gaza. And that's why I think the discussion now is on a Palestinian apolitical technocratic commission that somehow has to be linked to the PA, because we have to make sure that Gaza remains part of the occupied Palestinian territory, because all of us in the world agree that the two-state solution is the only path to the just and lasting peace that we all want. And I think in order for that two-state solution to be realized, Gaza and the West Bank must remain an integral part of each other and must be the ground on which the Palestinian state will have to eventually emerge as the condition for just and lasting peace that we all want. So we will have that, hopefully we will have that Palestinian commission that will be running the affairs of Gaza, and that commission should be supported. And I think we all realize the need for what I call personal international assistance mission that would come in and help the Palestinians in addressing the many challenges of ruling a place that has been turned to a wasteland over the past 2 years. Civil order has collapsed, there's no security structure, no functioning government structures, no health services, all the infrastructure that is needed to maintain stability are gone, and therefore it is imperative that the world stands by the Palestinians that they try to rebuild. And I think, again, if we get that international assistance mission with clear mandate as, to help the Palestinians not only in planning but also in capacity building, instituting building, I think that is also something that we have to look at. And of course, getting aid is a must. Gaza must be flooded with aid. After all this, the suffering the past 2 years, it is incomprehensible that aid should be a problem right now. The whole world is ready to send aid to Gaza, and I think Israel needs to lift obstacles against the entry of aid and against the ability of the UN organizations and other humanitarians to be able to do their job and to deliver the aid in Gaza. So if we do that, I think we'll be stabilizing for now, and then ultimately, of course, the big question is how do we create a political horizon that will restore hope, that will restore faith in the viability of peace and convince people after 2 years during which, as I said, hatred, dehumanization have dug so many deep roots. Only if we restore hope, only if we restore faith in the viability of the peace process, that would deliver a future of peace that will guarantee the rights of the Palestinians and will also guarantee the right of Israel to security and acceptance. That is the only way we can move forward, and that's the only way in which we can ensure security, in which we can ensure governance, and ensure that the world at large is not going to be once again affected by what's going to happen in our part of the world, and that the conflict will not erupt. Of course, key to the stabilization of Gaza is the West Bank. Because whatever we do in Gaza, if the West Bank erupts, that's going to be undermined. And therefore, it is also a must that we all come together and make sure that we prevent any actions that is going to lead to the eruption of violence or destabilization on the West Bank. And it is clear that unilateral measures that undermine the two-state solution must be stopped. You cannot speak of a future of peace and security if people lose hope, and if settlements continue to grow at the pace that we see. If the West Bank is annexed, then that is going to be the last nail in the coffin of all our aspirations for peace. And I think it was extremely important that President Trump was unequivocal when he said he will not allow the annexation of the West Bank. And that's something for which we're grateful, because that is a statement that President Trump is protecting the peace that must be the future of this region. Because if the West Bank is annexed, then there is no peace to talk about. So I think with the President coming on so strongly, so unequivocally, saying the West Bank cannot be annexed, I think that's a statement also that could be interpreted to mean that the President will protect the prospects of peace that are essential for our region and for the world at large. So I think the real hard work begins now when it comes to Gaza and the Palestinian issue. We have the ceasefire, as I said, must be protected, but now all of us need to come together with ideas to see how we can move forward, stabilize, but also move towards a better future. And here I must emphasize also the role of Europe. I've got European colleagues here on the panel, and I think the role of Europe is key. Europe has traditionally been the largest donor to the Palestinian issue. We're going to need them in the reconstruction process of Gaza, which is going to be enormously expensive. And I think Europe's role is important, not just in terms of providing the funds, but I think Europe should also have a seat on the table in our discussion along with the region, along with the US and other global partners, in trying to work out a future that's going to be a future of peace and stability for the Palestinians. I move to another regional hotspot, which is Syria. I think Syria has been a good success story thus far. Syria must succeed. We must do everything we can to help the Syrian government in its efforts to rebuild Syria on grounds that guarantee its security, territorial integrity, safety of its people, and representation of all its people. Because if Syria, God forbid, falls into chaos, everybody's going to suffer. And the global consequences of Syria falling into chaos are going to be extremely enormous in terms of terrorism, drugs, migration, and all of that. So stabilizing Syria is a key. We've got a government that took over Syria after 14 years of chaos. They're doing everything they can to rebuild, and I think they deserve our support, full support in helping them overcome the challenges that they face, with a view, again, to rebuilding the country on grounds that restore hope to the Syrian people that their future is not going to be fraught with the despair and anger and oppression that marked their recent history. And again, Israeli meddling in Syria is something that has got to stop. The Syrian government is unequivocally saying it wants to focus on rebuilding its country. It does not want to be any security challenges with anyone. It will not pose a threat to anybody outside its territory. And it said it's committed to the 1974 armistice with Israel. And it said it's willing to respect whatever legitimate security guarantees that Israel has in Syria. Against this backdrop, it is just unacceptable that Israel continues to meddle in Syrian affairs, occupying Syrian land and meddling in Syrian domestic issues, thus destabilizing the country. So that is something that I believe is of great consequence, and I think all of us in the region and beyond have an interest in Syria succeeding.
Minister,
thank
you very much. That's a lot on the table.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I took more than I thought I would take, but the issues are too many. But again, I'm grateful to you all, and I look forward for our conversation. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very much. Thank you very much for outlining the steps that need to be, practical steps that need to be taken on the basis of the moment that has now been created. And there's probably a good conversation to be had about pace and what is achievable in what time frame. Thank you very much. I now turn to Johan Wadefull.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really a pleasure to be here this morning. I would like to thank first of all, the IISS for inviting me once again. It's very good. I'm delighted to see my